The mining colony on Kepler 442b had been humanity's proudest achievement until the day the Zephyrian Empire arrived. Commander Vexthul watched through his command deck's viewing portal as the last human transport ship exploded in brilliant orange flames against the purple sky. His scaled lips curled into what his species considered a smile. "Status report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge where dozens of reptilian officers worked at glowing control panels. "All human military forces eliminated." "Commander," reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Crix. "The civilian population has been contained in the central compound. We estimate approximately 800 survivors." Vexthul nodded with satisfaction. The humans had put up more resistance than expected for such a primitive species, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 different alien civilizations over the past millennium. These soft-skinned bipeds with their crude weapons and emotional decision-making were just another footnote in galactic history. "Begin the selection process," Vexthul ordered. "We need test subjects for the Nightfang trials." The Nightfang was the Empire's most prized weapon, a genetically modified creature bred for maximum lethality. Standing 8 feet tall at the shoulder, the albino wolf-like beast possessed razor-sharp claws that could slice through starship hull plating and jaws powerful enough to crush titanium. Its white fur seemed to glow in darkness, earning it the nickname Death's Shadow among conquered species. The creature had never been defeated in combat. Not once in 300 years of trials had any being survived an encounter with the Nightfang in the arena. The Empire used these trials as both entertainment and a demonstration of power to newly conquered worlds. It was a tradition that broke the spirit of resistance in any species foolish enough to oppose them. As Vexthul's forces herded the human survivors into transport vehicles, he studied their faces through his ship's sensors. Most showed the expected fear and despair, but some still held defiance in their eyes. That would change soon enough. The human colony had been built around a massive mining operation that extracted rare crystals used in faster-than-light travel. These crystals were worth more than entire star systems, which made this conquest particularly valuable. But first, the Empire needed to ensure complete submission from the human population. Among the captured humans, 8-year-old Maya Chen clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter as armored Zephyrian soldiers pushed her family into a crowded transport. Her parents tried to shield her from the worst sights, but she had already seen too much. The explosions, the screaming, the bodies of neighbors who had tried to fight back. Maya's father, Dr. James Chen, was the colony's chief xenobiologist. He had spent years studying the local ecosystem and had made several important discoveries about the planet's unique wildlife. Her mother, Dr. Sarah Chen, was the head of the medical facility. Both were brilliant scientists who had dedicated their lives to peaceful exploration and discovery. "Don't let them see you're afraid," her father whispered to Maya as they were loaded into the transport. "Whatever happens, remember that you come from a species that never gives up." The transport vehicle hummed with alien technology as it carried them toward the Zephyrian command ship. Through the small windows, Maya could see other transports filled with her friends and neighbors. Mrs. Rodriguez from the bakery sat with her twin boys. Mr. Nakamura, who had taught Maya how to identify different types of crystals, stared blankly ahead. When they arrived at the massive Zephyrian vessel, the humans were separated into different groups. Maya watched in horror as soldiers pulled her parents away despite their desperate protests. She tried to run after them, but a large scaled hand grabbed her shoulder. "This one goes to the youth holding area," the soldier said in broken human speech. Maya found herself pushed into a room with about 30 other children, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. The older kids tried to comfort the younger ones, but fear hung thick in the recycled air. They had all heard stories about what happened to species that opposed the Zephyrian Empire. Through the transparent walls of their prison, Maya could see adult humans being divided into different groups. Some were clearly being selected for labor, their strong builds and technical knowledge making them valuable workers. Others were being moved toward what looked like medical facilities, probably for experiments. But there was a third group that made Maya's blood run cold. These humans were being taken to individual cells, isolated from everyone else. She didn't understand what made them special, but the way the Zephyrian soldiers handled them suggested something terrible was planned. Commander Vexthul reviewed the selection process from his command deck. The humans had provided an excellent variety of test subjects. The strong ones would break rocks in the crystal mines until they collapsed from exhaustion. The intelligent ones would be studied to understand human technology and biology, and the special ones would face the Night Fang. Commander, Lieutenant Crix approached with a data pad. We have completed the arena selections. 15 humans have been chosen for the trials. Excellent. What about the young ones? As per tradition, we will select one child to demonstrate the futility of resistance. The psychological impact on the remaining population will be significant. Vexthul studied the list of captured children. His eyes stopped on one entry. Maya Chen, age 8, daughter of the colony's lead scientists. Perfect. The loss of their leader's child would crush any remaining hope among the humans. This one, he pointed to Maya's image on the screen. Prepare her for the final trial. In the children's holding area, Maya pressed her face against the transparent wall, still hoping to catch a glimpse of her parents. She didn't know that in a few hours she would be standing alone in an arena, facing a creature that had never been defeated. The other children had fallen into exhausted sleep, but Maya remained awake, clutching her stuffed rabbit and thinking about her father's words. Her people never gave up. She didn't fully understand what that meant yet, but she would learn soon enough. Outside their prison, the massive Zephyrian ship hummed with activity as preparations began for the arena trials. The Night Fang was being awakened from its stasis chamber, its white fur beginning to glow with anticipation of fresh prey. The arena's energy barriers were being tested and calibrated. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The Zephyrians had no idea that they were about to make the greatest mistake in their empire's long and bloody history. The arena was a massive circular chamber located at the heart of the Zephyrian command ship. Its walls rose 50 feet high, constructed from the same energy-resistant materials used in starship armor. Thousands of Zephyrian spectators filled the viewing galleries, their excited chittering echoing through the space as they anticipated another entertaining execution. Maya stood in the center of the arena floor, still wearing her simple colony clothes and clutching her stuffed rabbit. The arena was enormous compared to her small frame, making her look even more vulnerable under the harsh lighting. Energy barriers hummed around the perimeter, ensuring that nothing could escape once the trial began. Commander Vexthul observed from his private viewing box, surrounded by his senior officers. This was always his favorite part of conquering a new species, the moment when their hope finally died. He had watched hundreds of different beings face the Night Fang over the centuries. Some begged for mercy, others tried to fight with their bare hands, and a few simply accepted their fate with dignity, but none had ever survived. Activate the viewing screens for the human holding areas, Vexthul commanded. I want all the survivors to witness this. Throughout the ship, screens flickered to life in every human prison cell. Parents gasped in horror as they recognized the small figure in the arena. Dr. James Chen pressed his hands against his cell's transparent wall, watching his daughter with tears streaming down his face. Dr. Sarah Chen collapsed to her knees, overcome with helpless rage and despair. In the children's holding area, the other young humans crowded around their screen in shocked silence. They all knew Maya, had played with her in the colony's recreational areas. She was the smallest among them, barely 8 years old, and now she stood alone in that terrible place. Why her? Whispered Tommy Rodriguez, one of the older boys. She's just a kid. But the Zephyrians understood the psychology of conquest better than most species realized. Breaking the strongest warriors was satisfying, but breaking the innocent was devastating. The sight of little Maya in that arena would haunt every human survivor for the rest of their lives. An announcer's voice boomed through the arena's speakers, speaking in the common galactic language that translation devices converted for the human prisoners. Citizens of the Empire, witness the fate of those who dare oppose our rule. This human child will now face our most perfect creation, the Night Fang. A section of the arena floor began to rise, revealing a circular platform. Thick clouds of vapor poured from hidden vents as the platform reached floor level. The vapor cleared slowly, building suspense for the bloodthirsty crowd. Maya's grip tightened on her stuffed rabbit as she stared at the emerging platform. She had heard the Zephyrians talking about their terrible creature, but nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. The Night Fang stood motionless on the platform, its pure white fur seeming to absorb and reflect the arena's light simultaneously. It was massive. larger than any earth animal Maya had ever seen. Its head alone was bigger than her entire body, and its paws were the size of dinner plates. Muscles rippled beneath its pristine coat, and its amber eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and predatory. The creature's most unsettling feature was its absolute silence. It didn't growl or snarl like the wolves Maya had seen in nature documentaries. Instead, it observed her with the calm focus of a perfect predator studying its prey. Every line of its body spoke of lethal efficiency bred over generations. The Zephyrian crowd erupted in cheers as the creature stepped down from its platform. The Nightfang moved with fluid grace despite its enormous size, each step calculated and purposeful. It began to circle Maya slowly, never taking its eyes off her. Maya turned to keep facing the creature, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The rabbit in her arms seemed pathetically small compared to the monster before her, but she held it tight anyway. It was the last connection to her old life, to her parents, to everything she had lost. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered, though her voice shook as she said it. The Nightfang's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. It had excellent hearing, bred to detect the slightest movement from its prey. But something about this particular human was different. Most beings in the arena either tried to run or collapsed in terror by now. This small creature remained standing, facing the Nightfang directly. In the viewing galleries, some Zephyrians began placing bets on how long the child would last. The record for shortest trial was 12 seconds, set by a Rigelian warrior who had simply died of fright upon seeing the Nightfang. Most bets were for under 30 seconds. Commander Vexthul leaned forward in his chair, studying the scene below. Something felt wrong, though he couldn't identify what. The child should be screaming by now, or at least trying to run. Instead, she stood her ground with a determination that seemed unnatural for someone so young. Maya's father had spent countless hours teaching her about different animal species during their time on Kepler 442b. He had explained predator behavior, pack dynamics, and survival instincts. Maya remembered his lessons as she watched the Nightfang circle her. Predators respect strength, she remembered him saying. Even when you're smaller, if you show confidence, sometimes they'll hesitate. The Nightfang completed its first circle and paused directly in front of Maya. Its massive head lowered until its eyes were level with hers, only 3 feet separating them. The creature's breath was warm against her face, carrying sense of the ship's recycling systems and something wild and dangerous. Maya looked directly into those amber eyes and saw something unexpected. Intelligence, yes, but also loneliness. This creature had been bred for one purpose, raised in isolation, trained only to kill. It had never known companionship or kindness. "You're like me," Maya whispered. "You're alone too." The Nightfang's ears perked up slightly. In 300 years of arena trials, no prey had ever spoken to it like this. Most made sounds of fear or pain, but this human's voice carried something different. Sadness, but not for herself. For the creature that was about to kill her. The crowd grew restless as seconds ticked by without violence. This was taking too long. The Nightfang should have struck by now, should have ended this quickly as it always did. Maya slowly extended one small hand toward the creature, still holding her rabbit with the other. The Nightfang could have snapped off her arm without effort, but it remained motionless, studying this unprecedented behavior. "I know they made you do terrible things," Maya said softly, "but maybe we don't have to fight." The arena fell silent as thousands of Zephyrian spectators watched in disbelief. This was not how these trials were supposed to go. The silence in the arena stretched for what felt like an eternity. Maya's hand remained extended toward the Nightfang, trembling slightly but steady in its resolve. The massive creature stared at her outstretched fingers with an expression that seemed almost confused. Commander Vexthul stood up abruptly in his viewing box, his scaled face contorting with anger. This was not proceeding according to plan. The crowd was growing restless, their excited chittering replaced by uncertain murmurs. Some were even starting to leave their seats. "Activate the pain stimulators," he commanded through his communication device. Deep within the Nightfang's skull, microscopic implants suddenly flared to life. Searing agony shot through the creature's nervous system, a familiar torment that had been used to train it since birth. The pain meant one thing: kill now or suffer more. The Nightfang's body convulsed as the electronic torture coursed through it. Its lips pulled back in a snarl, revealing teeth like ivory daggers. The creature's amber eyes, which had shown a flicker of something almost gentle, now blazed with forced rage. Maya saw the change immediately. The intelligent curiosity in the creature's gaze was replaced by mindless aggression. She realized with horrible clarity that the Zephyrians were controlling their weapon, forcing it to attack against its own instincts. "They're hurting you," she whispered, lowering her hand. "I'm sorry." The Night Fang lunged forward with lightning speed, its massive jaws opening wide enough to engulf Maya's entire head. But at the last second, something extraordinary happened. The creature twisted its body slightly, and instead of crushing her skull, its teeth closed on the stuffed rabbit in her arms. The toy was ripped from Maya's grasp and flung across the arena floor. Synthetic stuffing scattered like snow as the Night Fang shook its head violently, trying to satisfy the pain stimulator's demands without actually harming the human child. Maya stumbled backward but didn't fall. She understood what had happened. Even under electronic torture, the creature had chosen to spare her life, redirecting its attack to her toy instead. The crowd erupted in confusion. Some Zephyrians demanded to know why the trial wasn't proceeding properly. Others were fascinated by this unprecedented development. Never before had the Night Fang shown such behavior. "Increase the stimulator intensity," Vexithul snarled into his communicator. The technician in the control room hesitated. "Sir, we're already at maximum recommended levels. Going higher could cause permanent brain damage." "Do it." More pain flooded the Night Fang's nervous system, so intense that the creature collapsed to the arena floor, writhing in agony. Its white fur seemed to dim as the electronic torture overwhelmed its senses. Foam gathered at the corners of its mouth and its amber eyes rolled back. Maya had seen enough. Her father had taught her about animal cruelty during their research on Kepler 442b, showing her how human scientists work to protect and understand creatures rather than exploit them. What the Zephyrians were doing to this magnificent being was monstrous. "Stop hurting him," she shouted, her young voice carrying across the suddenly quiet arena. The unexpected outburst surprised everyone, including Maya herself. She had always been a quiet child, preferring books and nature walks to confrontation, but seeing the Night Fang's suffering awakened something fierce within her. Maya ran toward the writhing creature, ignoring the gasps from the viewing galleries. She dropped to her knees beside the Night Fang's massive head and placed her small hands on its white fur. "It's okay," she whispered, stroking the creature's neck. "I'm here." The physical contact seemed to have an immediate effect. The Night Fang's convulsions slowed, its breathing becoming less labored. Somehow, the touch of this small human was providing comfort that penetrated even the electronic agony. In the control room, monitoring equipment began registering readings that made no scientific sense. The Night Fang's stress hormones were decreasing despite the continued stimulation. Its brain patterns showed signs of conscious resistance to the pain induction. "This is impossible," the technician reported to Commander Vexthul. "The creature is somehow fighting the neural controls." Vexthul's eyes narrowed as he watched the scene below. The human child was still touching the Night Fang, whispering to it in soothing tones. More disturbing, the creature seemed to be responding. Its amber eyes had cleared and were focusing on Maya with renewed intelligence. Throughout the ship, human prisoners watched their screens in amazement. Maya's parents pressed closer to their viewing window, hardly daring to believe what they were seeing. Their 8-year-old daughter was not only still alive but appeared to be calming the Empire's most deadly weapon. Dr. James Chen recognized something important in what he was witnessing. During his xenobiological research, he had theorized that many species responded to what humans called empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. But humans seem to possess this trait to an unusual degree. "She's not just showing kindness," he whispered to himself. "She's actually connecting with it." The Night Fang slowly raised its massive head, looking directly into Maya's eyes. The pain stimulators were still active, still sending waves of agony through its nervous system. But the creature's focus remained on the small human who had chosen to comfort rather than flee. Maya continued stroking the creature's fur, amazed by how soft it felt beneath her fingers. Up close, she could see that the Night Fang's white coat was marked with dozens of small scars, evidence of years of training and forced combat. "They hurt you a lot, didn't they?" she said quietly. "But you don't want to hurt anyone else. I can tell." The Night Fang made a sound unlike anything it had ever produced before, a low, rumbling note that was part whine, part purr. It was the sound of a creature trying to communicate beyond its programming. In the viewing galleries, the Zephyrian crowd was becoming increasingly agitated. This was not entertainment anymore. Some were demanding refunds. Others were calling for security to intervene. But most were simply confused by what they were witnessing. Commander Vexthul activated his personal communicator to address the arena directly. His amplified voice boomed through the speakers. "Human child, step away from the creature immediately. This trial will proceed as planned." Maya looked up at the viewing boxes, her young face showing a defiance that surprised even her. She could see the Zephyrian commander glaring down at her, but she no longer felt afraid. The Night Fang needed her help, and that was more important than her own safety. "No," she called back, her voice clear and strong. "You can't make him hurt people anymore." The single word hung in the air like a challenge. In 300 years of arena trials, no condemned being had ever refused to cooperate with their own execution. The implications were staggering. Vexthul's face contorted with rage. This small human was making him look foolish in front of thousands of his subjects. Worse, she was somehow interfering with their most powerful weapon. "Guards, enter the arena and remove the child," he ordered. But as armed Zephyrian soldiers began moving toward the arena entrances, the Night Fang rose to its feet. Despite the continuing electronic torture, the creature placed itself between Maya and the approaching threat, its massive body shielding her from harm. For the first time in its artificially extended life, the Night Fang had chosen to protect instead of destroy. The Zephyrian guards hesitated at the arena entrances as they faced an unprecedented situation. The Night Fang stood protectively over Maya, its massive frame radiating threat despite the pain stimulators still torturing its nervous system. The creature's amber eyes tracked each soldier's movement with predatory focus. "Sir," one of the guards reported through his communicator, "the Night Fang is displaying aggressive behavior toward security personnel. Recommend we withdraw and reassess." Commander Vexthul slammed his fist on the railing of his viewing box. In 3 centuries of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. The Night Fang was supposed to be the Empire's perfect weapon, completely obedient, utterly lethal, and psychologically devastating to enemy populations. "Override all safety protocols," he commanded the control room. "Maximum stimulation intensity. I don't care if it kills the creature." The technician's scaled fingers trembled over the controls. "Commander, that level of neural stimulation has never been tested. We could lose the Night Fang permanently. Then we lose it. But this embarrassment ends now." The pain that flooded the Night Fang's brain was beyond description. The creature's legs buckled, and it collapsed beside Maya, convulsing violently. White foam poured from its mouth as its nervous system overloaded. The electronic torture was so intense that several monitoring systems simply shut down to prevent damage. Maya felt the creature's agony as if it were her own. She had always been sensitive to others' pain, a trait her parents had noticed when she was very young. But this was different, more direct, more overwhelming. Somehow their connection had grown stronger. "Stop it," she screamed, pressing her hands against the Night Fang's head. "You're killing him." In that moment of desperate contact, something extraordinary happened. Maya felt a sudden rush of memories that weren't her own. Images of laboratory cages, surgical procedures, forced combat training, and endless isolation. She experienced decades of the Night Fang's artificially extended life in seconds, understanding the depth of its suffering. But more importantly, the Night Fang experienced something it had never known before, the memory of human kindness. Through Maya's touch, it felt echoes of her childhood on Kepler 442b, of her parents' love, of playing with other children, of peaceful nights reading stories about friendship and adventure. The connection worked both ways. As Maya absorbed the creature's pain, the Night Fang absorbed her capacity for hope. In the control room, monitoring equipment began registering impossible readings. The Night Fang's brain activity was synchronizing with something external, the human child. Neural patterns that should have been chaotic were instead forming complex, stable configurations. "What's happening to the readings?" Vexthul demanded. "Unknown, sir. It appears the human is somehow interfering with the neural control system. The Night Fang's implants are resisting our signals. Through the shared connection, Maya felt the electronic implants in the creature's brain like foreign objects, causing constant irritation. She could sense how they worked, how they converted electromagnetic signals into pain and control commands, and somehow she began to understand how to fight them. Maya had always been gifted with technology, often helping her scientist parents with their equipment despite her young age. Her natural intuition for how systems worked now applied itself to the Night Fang's neural implants. "You don't have to listen to them," she whispered, her hand still pressed against the creature's head. "Their control only works if you believe you can't fight it." The Night Fang's amber eyes focused on hers with growing clarity. Through their connection, it felt her absolute certainty that freedom was possible. For the first time in its existence, the creature began to actively resist the electronic signals instead of simply enduring them. In the control room, alarms began sounding as the Night Fang's neural implants started malfunctioning. The creature's brain patterns were no longer responding to stimulation commands. Worse, the implants themselves were beginning to overheat as they met unexpected resistance. "Sir, we're losing control of the subject," the technician reported in panic. "The implants are failing." Vexthul stared down at the arena where the impossible was happening before his eyes. The small human child had somehow disrupted technology that represented centuries of scientific advancement. The implications were staggering. The Night Fang slowly rose to its feet, the electronic torture finally ending as its implants shut down completely. For the first time in its long life, the creature's mind was entirely its own. It looked down at Maya with an expression of pure gratitude, but their triumph was short-lived. Vexthul activated his emergency communicator, broadcasting throughout the ship. "All military personnel to the arena level. Code Red Containment Protocol. The weapon has gone rogue." Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as hundreds of armed Zephyrian soldiers converged on their location. Maya could hear them getting closer, their weapons charging with lethal energy. "They're coming," she said to the Night Fang. "There are too many of them." The creature's response surprised her. Instead of preparing to fight, it lowered its massive head and gently nudged her toward its neck. Maya understood immediately. She climbed onto the Night Fang's back, her small hands gripping the thick white fur. The creature was offering her something no human had ever experienced: partnership with the galaxy's most feared predator. As the first Zephyrian soldiers burst into the arena, they faced a sight that would haunt their dreams forever. The Night Fang stood in the center of the arena, no longer a controlled weapon but a free being making its own choices, and on its back sat a small human child who had accomplished the impossible. "Surrender now and you will not be harmed," one of the soldiers called out, though his voice shook with uncertainty. The Night Fang's response was a roar that shook the entire arena. It was not the mindless rage of a tortured animal, but the righteous fury of a free creature protecting someone it cared about. The sound was so powerful that several soldiers stepped backward involuntarily. Maya felt the creature's emotions through their connection, determination, protectiveness, and something else she was too young to fully understand. The Night Fang was finally fighting for something it chose to defend, rather than being forced to destroy for others' entertainment. "We're not surrendering," Maya called out, her young voice carrying unexpected authority. "We're leaving, and you're going to let us go." The Zephyrian soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. Their weapons were designed to stop normal threats, not a fully enraged Night Fang carrying a human child who had somehow broken their most advanced technology. In his viewing box, Commander Vexthul realized that his perfect conquest was turning into his greatest nightmare. The humans were proving far more dangerous than any of his previous enemies, not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of something his species had never encountered before. They possessed the ability to turn enemies into allies, to inspire loyalty through kindness rather than fear, and now that power had freed the Empire's most deadly creation, the real battle was just beginning. The Night Fang moved with lethal grace as it circled the arena floor, Maya clinging to its back. The Zephyrian soldiers maintained their positions at the entrances, weapons trained on the creature but none dared to fire. Their energy weapons could potentially kill the Night Fang, but at this close range, the creature would certainly kill several of them before going down. Commander Vexthul watched from his viewing box, his mind racing through possible solutions. He had invested too much in this conquest to let it fall apart now. The mining operation on Kepler 442b was worth more than his entire fleet, and the human population represented valuable slave labor. "Seal all arena exits," he commanded. "Flood the chamber with sleep gas." "Sir," his aide protested, "the gas will affect our own soldiers. Acceptable losses." "Do it." Vents hidden throughout the arena began releasing clouds of pale green vapor. The Zephyrian soldiers quickly activated breathing filters in their helmets. But Maya and the Night Fang had no such protection. Maya felt the first effects almost immediately, a drowsiness that made her eyelids heavy and her grip on the creature's fur weaken. Through their connection, she sensed that the Night Fang was fighting the gas's effects, but even its enhanced metabolism couldn't overcome the concentrated dose. "Stay awake," she whispered, pressing her face against the creature's neck. "Please don't let them put us to sleep." But the Night Fang's legs were already beginning to wobble. The sleep gas was designed to incapacitate beings much larger than humans, and the creature's enhanced size meant it was absorbing a potentially lethal dose. Maya felt her consciousness starting to fade when something unexpected happened. The torn remnants of her stuffed rabbit, scattered across the arena floor earlier, began to smolder. The synthetic materials in the toy were reacting with the sleep gas, creating a chemical reaction that neutralized the sedative. Dr. Sarah Chen, watching from her prison cell, recognized what was happening. "The stuffing," she whispered. "It's polymer-based. Maya, the polymer is breaking down the gas." Of course, Maya couldn't hear her mother's words, but her scientific intuition kicked in. She had helped her parents with enough experiments to understand basic chemistry. The burning smell from her destroyed toy wasn't just random, it was creating clean air. "Get closer to the smoke," she urged the Night Fang. The creature understood and moved toward the smoldering remains of the rabbit. As they breathed the chemically altered air, both Maya and the Night Fang felt their minds clearing. The accidental chemical reaction had created an antidote to the sleep gas. Commander Vexthul watched in disbelief as his prey not only survived his gas attack, but seemed to be recovering from it. His perfect trap was failing because of a coincidence so unlikely that his probability computers would have dismissed it as impossible. "How?" he snarled at his aide. "Unknown, sir. The gas concentration should have incapacitated them within 60 seconds. The Night Fang raised its head and looked directly at Vexthul's viewing box. Through Maya's connection, the creature had absorbed some of her human intelligence and was now capable of strategic thinking beyond its original programming. Maya felt the creature's new plan forming in its mind. It wasn't just going to try to escape, it was going to take the fight directly to their captors. "Are you sure?" she whispered. The Night Fang's response was a low growl of determination. After centuries of being controlled and tortured, it was ready to choose its own battles. The creature suddenly launched itself toward the arena wall with explosive force. Its claws, designed to pierce starship armor, easily tore through the energy barrier that surrounded the fighting floor. Sparks flew as the containment system overloaded and shut down. Zephyrian soldiers opened fire as the Night Fang leaped toward the viewing galleries. Energy beams lanced through the air, but the creature moved with supernatural speed and agility. Maya pressed herself low against its back, feeling the heat of near misses as they ascended the arena walls. The first viewing gallery they reached held civilian Zephyrians who had come to watch the execution for entertainment. They screamed and fled as the Night Fang landed among them, but the creature made no move to harm them. Instead, it bounded toward the next level, heading directly for the command section. "All security teams to the command deck," Vexthul ordered, finally showing the first signs of real fear.
Full lethal authorization. But the Night Fang had advantages beyond its physical capabilities.
Through its connection with Maya, it could sense the emotional states of the beings around them. The creature could distinguish between soldiers who were genuinely hostile and those who were simply following orders out of fear. As they climbed through the ship's levels, the Night Fang avoided unnecessary violence. It disabled guards who tried to stop them but didn't kill anyone who posed no real threat. Maya's influence was teaching the creature concepts it had never understood before: mercy, discrimination, and the difference between justice and revenge. The ship's corridors echoed with alarms as they fought their way upward. Maya could hear her fellow humans cheering from their prison cells as word spread that someone was fighting back. For the first time since the invasion, hope was returning to the captured colonists. The human holding areas, Maya said, pointing down a side corridor. We need to free them. The Night Fang understood. It bounded toward the prison section, its massive frame easily breaking through security doors that had been designed to contain much weaker beings. Within minutes, they had reached the area where the human children were being held. Maya slid down from the creature's back and pressed her hands against the transparent wall of the prison cell. Inside, 30 young humans stared at her in amazement. Tommy Rodriguez, the older boy who had comforted the others earlier, approached the barrier. Maya, how are you still alive? It's hard to explain, Maya said, glancing back at the Night Fang. But we're getting everyone out of here. The creature stepped forward and carefully placed one massive paw against the cell's locking mechanism. Its claws, sharp enough to cut through starship hull plating, made quick work of the electronic locks. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Stay close to me, Maya instructed as the children filed out. And don't be afraid of him. He's on our side now. The Night Fang lowered itself to allow some of the smaller children to climb onto its back. Maya was amazed by how gentle the creature could be when it chose to protect rather than destroy. They moved through the ship systematically, freeing more human prisoners from each section. Dr. James and Sarah Chen were among the first adults they rescued, and Maya's parents embraced her with tears of relief and amazement. How did you do this? Her father asked, staring at the Night Fang in wonder. I just talked to him, Maya replied simply. He was lonely like me. Nobody should have to be alone. Dr. Chen, with his xenobiological expertise, immediately grasped the implications of what his daughter had accomplished. She had somehow formed an empathic bond with an alien predator, something that current science considered impossible. As more humans were freed, Maya began to understand the true scale of what they were attempting. There were over 800 colonists aboard the Zephyrian ship, and getting them all to safety would require more than just freeing them from their cells. We need to reach the shuttle bays, Dr. Chen said. If we can capture some of their transport ships, we might be able to get everyone back to the planet's surface. The Night Fang's ears perked up at the mention of ships. Through their connection, Maya sensed that the creature understood starship operations better than they had realized. Years of being transported between different arenas had given it extensive knowledge of spacecraft systems. He knows the way, Maya announced, and he knows how to disable their security systems. What followed was the most organized prison break in galactic history. The Night Fang led the growing group of freed humans through the ship's maze-like corridors, avoiding patrols and disabling automated defenses. Maya rode on the creature's back, serving as a translator between human strategy and the Night Fang's intimate knowledge of Zephyrian technology. Commander Vexthul watched his perfect conquest crumbling through security monitors. Hundreds of human prisoners were now free and moving toward his shuttle bays. Worse, they were being led by a creature that knew his ship's weaknesses better than his own security staff. How many soldiers do we have left? He demanded. Approximately 400, sir, his aide reported. But they're scattered throughout the ship and many are reluctant to engage the Night Fang directly. Vexthul's scaled face contorted with rage. His supposedly inferior human prey had turned his greatest weapon against him, and now his own troops were afraid to fight. The psychological impact was devastating to Zephyrian morale. As the freed humans reached the shuttle bay level, they found themselves facing the ship's final defensive line. 200 armed Zephyrian soldiers blocked the entrance to the hangar, their weapons trained on the approaching crowd. This ends here, the lead soldier announced. Surrender now or face complete annihilation. Maya felt the Night Fang's muscles tense beneath her as the creature prepared for battle. But she also sensed something else through their connection, the fear and uncertainty radiating from the Zephyrian soldiers. They were following orders, but many of them had doubts about what they were doing. Wait, she called out, slid. The standoff in the shuttle bay stretched for long minutes as Maya's words echoed through the cavernous space. Several Zephyrian soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, their weapons wavering as doubt crept into their minds. These humans weren't behaving like any conquered species they had encountered before. Commander Vexthul's voice crackled through the soldiers' communication devices. Open fire immediately. That is a direct order, but the lead soldier hesitated. In his 15 years of military service, he had participated in the conquest of 7 different worlds. He had seen species beg for mercy, offer tributes, and attempt to bargain for their lives. But he had never seen a captured population show genuine concern for their captor's welfare. "Sir," the soldier spoke into his communicator, "the humans are not displaying hostile behavior. They appear to be attempting diplomatic contact." "I don't care if they're reciting poetry," Vexthul snarled. "Kill them all." Maya stepped closer to the soldiers, the Night Fang padding silently behind her. The massive creature's presence was impossible to ignore, but it made no threatening moves. Instead, it seemed to be studying the Zephyrian forces with intelligent curiosity. "What's your name?" Maya asked the lead soldier. The question caught him completely off guard. In all his years of military service, no enemy had ever asked his name. Sergeant Kesran of the 47th Imperial Guard. I'm Maya. This is my friend." She gestured toward the Night Fang. "He used to be forced to hurt people, but now he chooses to protect them. People can change, can't they?" Sergeant Kesran looked down at the small human child who spoke with such calm certainty. His military training told him to follow orders without question, but something deeper was stirring in his mind. For the first time in years, he was thinking about the morality of his actions rather than simply their legality. Behind Maya, the crowd of freed humans watched in tense silence. Many were parents themselves, and they recognized what Maya was doing. She wasn't just trying to save their lives, she was trying to save the Zephyrian soldiers from becoming murderers. Dr. James Chen stepped forward carefully, his hands visible and empty. "Sergeant, I'm a scientist. I've studied dozens of different species across this galaxy. Every intelligent race has the capacity for both cruelty and kindness. The choice between them is what defines us." "The Empire has chosen strength," Kesran replied, but his voice lacked the conviction of true belief. "Has it?" Dr. Chen asked gently. "Or has it chosen fear? You have the strongest military in known space, the most advanced technology, the largest territory, but you're so afraid of losing control that you torture children for entertainment." The words hit their target. Kesran and several other soldiers looked uncomfortable as they considered the truth in the human statement. The Zephyrian Empire's strength came from intimidation and overwhelming force, but it was driven by a deep fear of rebellion and loss of dominance. Maya sensed the growing uncertainty among the soldiers through her connection with the Night Fang. The creature's enhanced senses could detect the chemical changes in the Zephyrians' bodies as stress hormones fluctuated and certainty wavered. "You don't want to hurt us," Maya said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. "I can tell. You're good people who are being ordered to do bad things." Commander Vexthul's patience finally snapped. If his soldiers wouldn't follow orders, he would take direct action. He activated the ship's internal defense systems, causing energy turrets to emerge from hidden panels throughout the shuttle bay. "Since my troops lack the spine to eliminate inferior beings," his voice boomed through the bay's speakers, "automated systems will complete the task." The energy turrets began charging with lethal power, their targeting systems locking onto the crowd of humans. But as the weapons prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. Sergeant Kesran stepped between the humans and the nearest turret, his body shielding Maya from the automated weapons. One by one, other soldiers followed his example, forming a protective barrier around the freed colonists. "Stand down, you fools," Vexthul's voice shrieked through the speakers. "That's mutiny." "Yes, sir," Kesran replied calmly into his communicator. "It is." The energy turrets fired, but their targeting systems were confused by the intermixed Zephyrian and human life signs. Several shots went wide, striking the bay's walls and ceiling. Others were blocked by the soldiers' energy shields. In the chaos that followed, Maya felt the Night Fang's plan forming through their connection. The creature had been studying the shuttle bay's layout and had identified a weakness in the ship's defenses. "The power coupling," Maya said to her father, "behind that panel. If we can disrupt it, the automated systems will shut down." Dr. Chen followed her gaze and immediately understood. His years of technical experience let him recognize the energy distribution node that powered the bay's defensive systems. But it was located behind heavy shielding that would require significant force to penetrate. The Night Fang was already moving. With surgical precision, the creature leaped over the heads of soldiers and humans alike, landing directly beside the power coupling. Its claws, designed to pierce starship armor, made quick work of the protective panel. Sparks flew as the creature's massive paws tore through vital conduits. The energy turrets sputtered and went dark as their power supply was severed. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting the shuttle bay in eerie red illumination. "Now," Dr. Chen shouted to the other humans. "Get to the transport ships." The freed colonists rushed toward the Zephyrian shuttlecraft parked throughout the bay. Many of them were engineers and technicians who understood spacecraft systems well enough to operate the alien vessels. But Maya didn't run toward the shuttles. Instead, she approached Sergeant Kesseran, who was helping wounded soldiers to safety. Several Zephyrians had been injured by the misfiring energy turrets. "Thank you," she said simply. "You chose to protect us even when it was dangerous." Kesseran looked down at the human child who had somehow convinced him to commit treason against his own empire. "I don't understand what you've done to us. We should be enemies." "We don't have to be," Maya replied. "People aren't born enemies. They're taught to be enemies, but they can also be taught to be friends." Through the shuttle bay's viewing windows, they could see Zephyrian reinforcement ships approaching. Commander Vexthul had called for support from the fleet, and within minutes the bay would be overrun with fresh troops who hadn't been influenced by Maya's unexpected diplomacy. "You need to go," Kesseran urged. "My fellow soldiers and I will face court-martial for this, but you still have a chance to escape." Maya shook her head. "We're not leaving without you. You helped us, so now we help you." The Nightfang padded over to them, its amber eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. Through their connection, Maya felt the creature's agreement. It too understood that true victory meant saving everyone, not just the people who looked like you. "Come with us," Maya said to the Zephyrian soldiers. "Help us get everyone to safety, and then you can decide what you want to do next." It was an offer that defied everything the galaxy understood about conquest and warfare. But as Sergeant Kesseran looked into the eyes of an 8-year-old human girl who had already accomplished the impossible, he realized that maybe everything they thought they knew about the universe was wrong. The evacuation of the Zephyrian command ship became a chaotic symphony of cooperation between former enemies. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians to prepare the transport shuttles, while Maya and the Nightfang moved between groups, coordinating the massive rescue operation. Sergeant Kesseran had made his choice. Along with nearly half of his soldiers, he was actively helping the humans escape rather than following Commander Vexthul's increasingly desperate orders. The philosophical revolution that Maya had sparked was spreading through the ship's crew like wildfire. "Transport 1 ready for launch." Dr. Sarah Chen reported from the pilot's seat of a captured shuttle. Her medical training had included emergency spacecraft operation, and she was confident she could get 50 colonists safely to the planet's surface. "Transport 2 operational," called out Tommy Rodriguez, the teenager who had helped comfort the younger children. Despite his age, he had shown remarkable aptitude for the alien controls and was preparing to pilot another group to safety. The Nightfang stood guard near the shuttle bay's main entrance, its enhanced senses monitoring the approach of Vexthul's reinforcements. Through their connection, Maya felt the creature's growing concern. The enemy ships were getting closer, and soon this temporary sanctuary would become a battleground. "How much time do we have?" Maya asked the Nightfang. The creature's response came as a flood of sensory information: radar signatures, engine signatures, estimated arrival times. Maya's young mind processed the data with surprising efficiency, translating the Nightfang's enhanced perception into human terms. 5 minutes, she announced to the evacuation teams. Maybe less. Commander Vexthul's voice echoed through the bay's communication system one final time. "To any loyal soldiers remaining in the shuttle bay, Imperial reinforcements are arriving momentarily. Any personnel found assisting the escaped prisoners will be executed for treason." Sergeant Kesseran looked around at his fellow soldiers who had chosen to help the humans. Fear was visible in their eyes, but so was determination. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "We knew the consequences when we made our choice," he said quietly. "No one is forcing you to stay." But none of the Zephyrian soldiers moved toward the exits. Whatever Maya and the Nightfang had awakened in them was stronger than their fear of punishment. Maya climbed onto the Nightfang's back one final time, feeling the creature's emotions through their bond. It was conflicted, torn between its desire to protect her and its understanding that she needed to escape with her people. "You're coming with us," Maya said firmly. You're not staying here to fight alone. The Night Fang's mental response was complex, gratitude mixed with concern. It knew that its presence among the humans would fundamentally change both species. But it also knew that Maya was right. The time for fighting alone was over. The first wave of reinforcement troops breached the shuttle bay just as the last transport was preparing to launch. Energy weapons fire erupted across the cavernous space as loyal Zephyrian forces engaged the soldiers who had chosen to protect the Ta'ati, humans. Maya watched in horror as beings who had been working together moments before were now forced to fight each other. This wasn't the solution she had hoped for. Violence was simply creating more violence. Stop, she shouted, her young voice somehow carrying over the chaos of battle. Please, everybody stop. The Night Fang amplified her voice through a resonant roar that shook the entire shuttle bay. The unexpected sound caused both sides to pause in their conflict, weapons still raised but temporarily held in check. Maya slid down from the creature's back and walked into the center of the firefight. Energy beams had scorched the floor around her, and the air still crackled with residual charge, but she showed no fear. Fighting each other won't solve anything, she said, her words clear in the sudden silence. We're all just people trying to do what we think is right. The reinforcement troops stared at the small human child, who had somehow stopped a battle through sheer force of will. Their orders were clear: eliminate all humans and arrest any soldiers who had aided them. But those orders felt increasingly hollow in the face of what they were witnessing. The Empire has taught us that strength comes from making others fear us, Maya continued, but real strength comes from making others want to help us. You can choose which kind of person you want to be. One of the reinforcement soldiers, a young lieutenant who looked barely older than Tommy Rodriguez, slowly lowered his weapon. Others followed his example, the tide of certainty that had driven them beginning to ebb. But Commander Vexthul wasn't finished. His voice boomed through the shuttle bay's speakers with desperate authority. Any soldier who fails to follow orders will join the humans in death. Open fire immediately or face execution for cowardice. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Maya realized that some people were too committed to their old ways of thinking to change, no matter what evidence was presented to them. But that didn't mean everyone had to follow them. You don't have to choose between your loyalty and your conscience, she said to the assembled soldiers. You can choose to be loyal to something better than an empire built on fear. The Night Fang moved to stand beside Maya, its massive presence a reminder of what was possible when enemies became allies. Through their connection, Maya felt the creature's absolute faith in her ability to find a peaceful solution. And in that moment, she had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. Commander Vexthul, she called out, knowing he was listening through the communication system. I challenge you to single combat. The shuttle bay fell completely silent. The idea of an 8-year-old human child challenging the commander of a star fleet was so absurd that nobody quite knew how to respond. I beg your pardon? Vexthul's voice carried a note of disbelief. Single combat, Maya repeated. If I win, everyone goes free. Humans and Zephyrians who helped us. If you win, we all surrender without any more fighting. Dr. James Chen started to protest, but Maya cut him off with a look that was surprisingly mature for someone her age. She had a plan, and she needed everyone to trust her. What possible challenge could a human child present to me? Vexthul demanded. Maya smiled for the first time since this ordeal began. I challenge you to prove that fear is stronger than friendship. Come down here and face me alone without weapons or soldiers or machines. Just you and me talking. The challenge was so unexpected, so completely outside the normal rules of warfare, that Vexthul found himself agreeing before he fully considered the implications. Very well, he said. If this foolishness will end the embarrassment you've caused, I accept. As the shuttle bay doors opened to admit Commander Vexthul, Maya felt the Night Fang's concern through their bond. The creature understood that this was her greatest gamble yet, but it also felt her absolute confidence that compassion could triumph over cruelty, even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The final confrontation was about to begin, and it would determine not just the fate of the human colonists, but the future relationship between two very different species.